So following on from the discussion on non-conflict, this topic of non-conflict, I'll just read a verse of 2 verses from the Dhammapada, chapter 10, violence, or it's translated as the stick. Speak not maliciously to anyone, for those thus spoken to might retort.
Okay, first point.
Might retaliate. It's very short. Indeed, malicious speech is dukkha, and retaliation may be the result.
What is malicious speech? Is it the choice of words? Is it the intonation? Is it shouting at you or not? What determines malicious speech as malicious speech?
Your intention.
Exactly. What intention?
Yeah.
Intention to harm. So that's the first point here. Because many people are caught up in the idea that speech in itself is malicious.
Yeah.
Like the words are chosen immediately means this is the motivation. By the way, same works the same for any type of action. Action is determined as good or bad, wholesome, unwholesome, malicious or non-malicious, by the intention behind it, not by the content of it. Certain type of action is always unwholesome, such as killing, sexual intercourse, and so on in terms of the precepts, lying, stealing. That's abandoned. That's not to be done, as the Buddha said. But every other action that's not covered by that is then basically determined by your intention, and speech especially. So that's important thing, again, to realize the motivation behind the action is what determines it. Not like, I will never use these words, I will never raise my voice, because I must not be malicious. That means you have a view that maliciousness is there where it isn't. And because of that, you're not seeing it for where it actually is.
And it's going to continue, and you maintain maliciousness.
Exactly. So you can have your perfect, psychotherapy type of speech to never say anything conflicting to anyone and hate their guts. Fully be rooted in ill will, but have this perfect tone, soft words spoken to them.
Lovely smile on your face.
Lovely smile on your face, exactly. And there's that sutta where the Buddha said that. Said some companions in a holy life are softly spoken, agreeable, loved by everybody, but they have wrong views. They don't understand what the root of the problem is, they don't understand the way out of it, they don't understand anything, but they're pleasing to everybody, and they're extremely blameworthy. Oh, it's because the view makes them blameworthy. Then you have the other type of people who are actually upsetting to others. They don't have agreeable speech to others, but they also have the right view, and they know where the problem is, and they can basically teach that and so on. And then they're not blameworthy, because they cannot have a malicious intent, because they understood it. So it doesn't matter how you speak. Speech is not malicious by itself. Exactly. It's why you're saying it and what's your intention behind. And again, that's sometimes, I don't know how often, but I've seen it a number of times that people will refuse to even accept this, which is very clear, and all you need to do is read more suttas and you'll see it said many times. But people still refuse to accept that because, well, if you accept that the motivation determines whether your speech is good or bad, whether your action is good or bad, that means then you become more aware of your motivation and on your responsibility in regard to things, as opposed to just blindly adhere to not raising your voice, not saying certain words, always speaking with certain facial expression, and that's your practice. That's palpable, that's doable, that's observable. And that's why it's nothing to do with understanding.
And it also, it means that it's also presentable.
It's very presentable, and it's very relatable.
Others will praise.
Very relatable externally.
A good report has been spread around.
It's fine. It's a natural thing to assume that. But again, you have to ask yourself, okay, but am I in position to know what the way out of suffering is and how this contributes to it or not? If the answer is no, you mustn't take for granted any assumption that you have. I know first time I read that sutta where that monk was basically really rude to all these people and other monks, talking down to them and calling them names and whatnot, and people got upset and went to the Buddha. I mean, obviously must have been a big deal because many people went to the Buddha for that sake. It wasn't just one person complained. The Buddha called him and then saw that he was an arahant. And he didn't tell him, but you should still police your speech and change your habits. No, he said, no, he's an arahant.
You're blameless.
He's blameless, doesn't matter how he speaks. And then he said the reason he still speaks like that because of his previous lives and so on and so forth. And at the time when I read that, I couldn't make sense out of it. Because in my mind, the idea of an arahant is just this always, like, you cannot say, and it's like, well, wait a minute. If something is upsetting to somebody, it doesn't mean that it's wrong or not even unwholesome. It's the intention of the person who does it. That's what determines it. But then you realize, oh, so then I should start looking at my own intentionality behind my own seemingly justifiable actions and choices I'm making. And that already makes you doubtful, fills you with anxiety, because you realize you can tomorrow decide to do the otherwise. You can just walk away. You are not justified to do anything unless you choose to do it. And you realize that's your only justification. That I've chosen it. That's it. And that's not the justification. That's felt much more responsibly, much more heavily, much more unpleasantly. So it's better then for me to ignore maybe the suttas that talk about that and then just focus and blindly adhere to certain types of behavior, certain type of speech, certain type of soft voice, certain type of this, certain type of that. Like if you naturally do that and speak like that, that's absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing it, so basically you think that's what the practice is, which then allows you to not look at the motivation why you're doing it, that's why it's not fun.
So you might be doing it a right motivation, but you must realize that speaking harshly will probably result in retaliation from the other person.
Yeah, of course, exactly.
Like you have that perspective.
It's part of the deal, exactly. You cannot pretend or say like that monk, and that monk did not complain about people complaining about him. I'm sure him being an arahant, he understood that, well, it's part of the package. Mm-hmm. If he were to by any chance decide to deal with all these complaints, he would have maybe changed his speech, but he would have had a practical reason for it. He would have not changed it out of some misguided view that softly speaking means the Dhamma. Not raising your voice means the Dhamma. Because it doesn't. And all you need to do is read the Vinaya Suttas and see how the Buddha spoke to the monks that broke the rules. I remember there was another thing I was quite shocked when I saw it first time. Because in your mind the Buddha is this mix of, Mahayana and everything else, this loving kindness, joy always on his face. And then I came across the Vinaya Suttas when the monks done things they shouldn't have. And then the Buddha came and rebuked them, and the words he used to them, you're like, well, if you wouldn't know that whether speech is full of ill will is determined by the motivation behind the speech, not the content of the speech, you would think the Buddha was furious. Mm. I mean, I don't want to repeat stuff he said because he was quite...
Yeah, really, like, you stupid, you fool.
He was worse than that when it came to those sexual rules that monks broke. The words he used and comparisons he made. It was like shocking at the time, but then it was, well, actually... that was the appropriate, proportional response to the action they committed. If he was like, it's all fine, brother, next time you'll do better, they're not going to take it seriously, exactly. So the whole order will decline as a result of it. So if he was that level of, harshness means that's how much it was required. But you to judge that he was full of ill will because of the words he's used, well, means your own ideas of it are quite misguided, where the problem is.
So, in terms of, having that perspective that there is going to be some sort of retaliation, that a relationship means that there's going to be some sort of, all relationships will be conflicting. So
conflicting, yeah. Well, I think that's every relationship already is to some degree. Yeah. There's always a conflict when two beings come together. Conflict in a sense being, they're already different in some regard. So but if both of the beings were to protect their mindset of non-conflict, non-ill will, there cannot be any conflict arising. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what words they use. If you're unable to get full of ill will towards me, even if I'm full of ill will towards you, that means already there is no room for ill will to arise in our relationship, because it needs to be reciprocated, needs to be given back. But now imagine if both of us are incapable of ill will towards each other.
Yeah,
Not because I love you so much and you're a dear friend of mine, because no, I protect my mind of non-ill will so much that I don't care who's in front of me, I will not allow my mind to hate them.
Yeah.
And if you do the same, that is the divine abode, incapable of hatred on both sides, both parties.
Yeah. The
Regardless of what's said, what's done, what's perceived.
Yeah, truly harmonious.
That doesn't mean I will be oblivious to your behavior because I'm so full of non-ill will that you can do anything. No, I'll still recognize that was a foolish thing to do. And now I can tell you, because it won't be rooted in my hatred of you, nor ill will. And furthermore, you'll be able to hear it and not lose your composure because you will not have ill will towards me. So it doesn't matter how blunt things can get, you will not lose the context. Neither party would lose the context.
But the party, the person who has that non-conflicting mindset, that right intentions, who's coming from the right place, if he says, well, you're a fool, but he must also realize if that person is coming from, will be able to hear it or not. Because usually people are not going to be able to hear that.
No, because they already don't have that context to begin with.
Yeah.
And they will never have that context to begin with if they don't start looking for it at the right place, which is your own mindset in regard to how you're feeling, regardless of what you heard, seen, tasted, touched, and so on.
The wise person knows when to say, knows
exactly
who to
when
say.
is the right time to say it.
When it's not, when it's going to be beneficial or
Exactly. Why? Because they already have that greater perspective of non-conflict, non-ill will, non-resistance to. So, in other words, if you don't resist to how you're feeling, you're not gonna become impatient to say something. Because the reason people become impatient and say things, right things, but at the wrong time, is because they can't bear how they're feeling at the time, so they must say it quickly. But if your priority is don't resist how you feel regardless of what it is, you cannot even give in to that. Which means whenever you say it, it will be the right time because you're not saying it out of impatience. Which is a form of resisting to how you're feeling at the time.
But yeah, if you're impatient.
And you also will not be bothered by the thought, what if I never say this? What if this person never hears that? You're indifferent to it. It's not your problem.
That's not your duty.
And then you know you can say it. Because you won't be rooted in any form of resistance or impatience that you might have. Because yes, literally, what if I were to die after the next in-breath? How important would it be to me to say this? So you realize the only reason why things are important, pressing, I must say it, you cannot resist, compulsive, is because you resist how you're feeling and you want to quickly deal with that.
Impatience.
Means you forsake the framework for the sake of dealing with the content.
And the next verse following.
What was that? Was it the broken gong?
Yeah. Says
Because that's what I was saying basically.
Yeah.
When even if I'm full of ill will and your mind is incapable of ill will, because it's not reciprocated back to me, there is no ill will in the relationship. That's like the gong is broken. Doesn't matter how much I'm hitting it, there will be no sound resonating because it needs the response. Yeah. Now imagine if both sides are broken. The stick you're hitting the gong is broken. There is no resonance of any ill will. Impossible to occur.
Yeah, that conflict that's coming from one can only go so far.
Yeah. And that's the Dhamma part. Hatred breeds hate.
Yeah, it's like one of the
verse number 4. It cannot occur otherwise.
And there is going to be hatred. There is going to be.
Can you have hatred without resistance to what you hate? Is there any form of hatred other than resistance, amplified resistance? There isn't. So if you're incapable of resistance towards how you're feeling, would you be able of hating anything based on your feeling? Impossible. So instead of trying to deal with your hatred, chase it, just stop resisting how you're feeling in regard to anything and everyone. You'll be incapable of hatred.
In the world, there will always be those who hate.
That's what the world is.
So, what do you expect?
You expect for you to protect your mind of non-hate.
Yeah.
Amidst everybody hating.
But trying to make others not hate and going out of your way to make others not hate.
That will be rooted in you
right.
resisting how you
Right.
feel on account of experiencing
Yeah.
hate.
Yeah.
So
You're missing the point.
you make yourself liable to you yourself hating then, because you
And you're
abandon the
setting yourself
framework.
up for a major task
Yeah.
that will never be completed. and
Impossible to complete. Exactly.
dissatisfaction
Yeah,
all the way.
yeah, yeah.
The very
It's futile completely.
The opposite of the peaceful mind, peaceful life,
Mm.
the Brahmavihara, for
Mm.
example. It's exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Trying to make a difference.
Yeah, that's it.
Because
And
things
you
aren't
will
right.
know that if you look where your motivation is rooted. Even motivation, like, why am I practicing in such and such manner? What for? Is it to manage what I don't want to accept on the level of my feeling? Is it to develop indifference towards my feelings? Is it this? Is it that? And if your practice is about, dealing with hate, dealing with this, spreading love, you realize, well, that's quite a limited application already. It's dependent on these things, which means you cannot possibly prevent people from acting foolishly, saying things that will be upsetting. It's impossible. So then the only reason you will be trying to prevent that is because you still hold the view that will basically save you from the discomfort. And as such, you remain liable to the same discomfort.
So that verse again I'll read. If like a broken gong you silence yourself, you have approached Nibbana, for malice or contention is no longer found in you.
Yeah.
That's it.
What do malice, contention, hatred, ill will have in common?
Resistance.
Resistance, yeah. Can you resist something if that thing is not felt? Impossible. So then if you stop resisting to how you feel, you then stop cultivating malice, hatred, contentions, everything else. Impossible to engage with those things.
Yes, silence.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's the true silence.
Yeah, the noble silence.
Not like,
in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sewing a mouth shut.
Noble silence.
Noble silence, yeah.